The world of esports may be a mystery or something very common to you. On this, the Juhadre podcast in association with Rated R Esports, we're going to talk a lot about it. So without further ado, let's jump right into our episode. Good evening, everyone. Afternoon, I don't know actually what time it is, but either way, I am Juhadre, and joining me tonight once again is Alvatross. How are you tonight?
I'm really good today. And to answer your question, it is currently 5:55 Mountain Standard Time.
So we are recording. It is September 20th, 2019 at 5:55, as Albatross stated. And before we get started with Juhadre, Albatross, we need to talk about a couple of things here.
Yep, we have some updates today for our podcast for you.
Number one, as you saw on the Rated R Esports YouTube page was where the first episode was posted, and it will continue to be there. Rated R is looking at other platforms to release as well, just working on getting accounts and such. So expect updates on that on the episodes from YouTube from here on out.
So the next update that we wanted to say is something we talked about. We wanted this podcast to be really raw, really fresh and real. Now, we come from Utah, so we had to come from a different standpoint. With the culture here, we decided Rated R is actually in the name of this company, the program,
the organization. Yeah.
However somebody wants to put that. We'll go with organization. That sounds good. But Rated R. So where we are keeping it more clean as the hosts, when we bring on guests, just forewarning, it won't be censored. If they want to use certain language or comments, well, again, this is a raw podcast. It says Rated R in it. So just warning everybody, as gaming can be friendly, League of Legends is not that bad of a game. It's a great game. Mm-hmm. Just remember, some of our guests are going to be, they're going to be themselves. That's what we like.
Exactly. And we want to accentuate that. Speaking of, you mentioned we will have guests.
Yeah.
And from the very beginning, I've always liked the idea of interviews and guests and adding more material here to the podcast to really broaden our own spectrum as well as that of the organization as a whole.
That's a really great idea. Thinking about how other people's point of views than just their own.
Exactly.
We've actually already been talking with a few people that we know, streamers, gamers, and they're so excited about this podcast that we had. Now, before we go on, I had a thought, and I don't want to lose it.
Okay, please.
When our first podcast came on, as soon as you told me that, hey, it's being uploaded to YouTube like right now, how did you feel?
How did I feel?
Think about it.
So it's a little more funny story than that. We were actually at work. As we said in the first episode, Alvatross and I work together outside of Rated R Esports. Just at our day job, we're working together. And we had just moved sites to do a team meeting. And the co-owner, Proden, messaged me and said, hey, I'm uploading this right now. And I was like, oh, okay, I guess that's happening. And I told you, and a couple of our coworkers were like, whoa, what?
So excited. It was hilarious how they found it like right after it was posted and started listening to it. It was amazing.
I don't know how to describe how I felt. I've done broadcasts in the past. We'll do episodes on that and describe that in a little more detail. It didn't affect me very much because I had already done a little bit of the mastering and cutting and everything. And I've had the experience of being broadcasted out on the internet a couple of times. And it was exciting. Don't get me wrong, but I don't know how really to describe it.
See, where I was at, I've never had something like that.
Right.
Now, I'm in a band. I've played in a band, but I play guitar. But to have my voice, I don't even like listening to myself, but I'm like, oh, let me listen to my voicemail outgoing. I don't even like listening to that, but I was excited. It was like, this is really happening. It's YouTube, and YouTube's probably, people say it is the hardest platform to get started on because that's where everybody goes.
Right. And that is true. But
it was
it was good.
exciting, nerve-wracking feeling. I mean, it wasn't a big deal. It was just an intro, but that was exciting.
Right.
So
I guess before we get to this other update, I want to say the next update is actually that we're working on equipment right now. I bought the microphone and the boom arm, and when I actually got started streaming and doing casting and everything, a good friend of mine who is now actually my superior at Rated R Esports helped me buy sound dampening foam and set it up in this room. The problem is this room is actually really big and in a weird shape, and so no matter what we've done, like count these panels here, 2, 4 plus 4 is 8, 12, 13. We have 13 sound blocking panels, 4 or 5 posters, a whole bunch of I have 4 computers in here and stuff, and it's still echoing, and I don't know how to get rid of it. So
we are going to try and I am going to be buying a microphone soon, and we'll try it at my place, because I have a better room.
Yeah, I think it'll be better than that.
It's actually a square. It's not an L.
Yeah, this is an L-shaped room, and
it's
so
perfect for what you do.
For what I do, typically, yes, it works really well. And then in addition to that, actually, our owner asked if we wouldn't mind doing video, so there will be a camera coming up.
Yes, that is something we're looking at next. Getting a camera. So we're gonna shave first. Trim our beards. I'm just kidding. No, both have facial hair.
All right, and so last update, we want to kind of give a very vague roadmap for the next couple of episodes, because they're moderately themed, I guess we could say.
Yeah, we talked about that today right before we left work today, and I came up to him and I was like, okay, I'm super excited about this podcast, but what's our goal for a little bit?
Yeah.
We gotta have a plan, a roadmap. And so do you want to introduce what we're talking about today?
Not what we're talking about today necessarily. I'll let you start that. Okay. But the concept, the idea, what we're wanting to do is, with this podcast as a whole, is we want to help people get involved with esports. What do you need to know? What do you need to have? What do you need to do? Those type of things. Who do you need to know? Where do you need to start?
Those are all good questions.
They really are.
We have a few people at work, because we work in the tech industry, that want to do that kind of stuff.
Mm-hmm.
We know, and they're always asking questions. What about this? What about that? Where do I go? What do I buy? How do I do this? And we're here to answer those questions.
Right. And so then today, what you and I talked about a couple of different options about where do you actually start?
Yeah, what's the foundation of being either a gamer, a streamer, or both?
Right.
Because they're all 3 different things.
So now we do need to clarify, there are a few presumptions here. We assume, assumptions rather than presumptions. We assume, number 1, that you have a computer that functions on which you play games. Or a console.
Whether you're a console, PC, you have to have some kind of platform in order to start gaming. So.
Right. And you and I talked extensively about that. Actually, it was a long discussion, unnecessarily, but it's because I didn't communicate correctly, and so now I am. The assumption is that you have a platform on which to play that functions. For example, I told you earlier today that the first machine I used to play a game that got me into gaming had, are you ready for this? 256 megabytes of memory.
Oh man, I remember those computers. That's about the biggest one I played on.
Yeah.
Actually, So that leads us into what we're going to talk about today.
Yes.
And so today, it's going to be basically one word: consistency.
Exactly.
So let's assume that you have the platform, so the console or the PC, and we're not going to go in today on which one's better, because that comes down to more personal preference, but consistency. So let's say you got the game. So I was thinking about that. Okay, consistency. So it's amazing. So I got started in the game world, and it just brought me back so many memories.
Right.
The first game I ever played was called Chips Challenge. It's from 1989, and It's just this game. All you use is the enter button and the arrow keys. And you just run around, and it's a puzzle solving game. So I called my mom, Mom, how old was I when I played this game? And she goes, oh my gosh, you were probably 2.5, 3 years old. I was playing video games at 2.5 to 3 years old.
All right, I'm going to blow your mind. You have a son upstairs who is 2 years and about 3 months old.
Yeah.
So think about yourself, roughly his age, 6 months older.
I can't imagine it. I'm like, I remember this game in my mind. Like, when I was trying to look up the game that I played so much, because, I mean, we had this Windows 98 computer that you had to, don't turn off your computer. You may now press the power button to turn off your computer. Like, wow. I remember playing that, but I'm thinking, like, I was that young? I used to play that. And just remembering, I had to be so consistent. Yeah, I'm using the word consistent in it.
Very good.
But I had to be consistent with it because, I mean, I had to figure it out. And I think that's what got me into the mindset of being a gamer.
Yeah. And you have to start somewhere, right? You have to decide you want to play. You have to pick a game. You have to pick a goal and everything like that. And then there are a couple of steps. And what we want to go over is what are the things in which you need to be consistent to make it in the esports world. Now, I want to be very clear. That doesn't necessarily mean an athlete, because my consistency led me to be a caster, and now I manage a team.
Correct.
And unfortunately, that consistency that I put into League of Legends specifically has not led me to be a professional player. I haven't had the time, as I described in the first episode. I have the knowledge, but I haven't been able to practice and get my hands to do what my brain knows they can do. But there are a couple of those things. Number one, you have to understand that consistency is the dreamer's bane. It is the exact opposite of what most dreamers want. Would you agree?
I mean, I would agree. I mean, most of us want to just play a game and automatically be good.
Exactly.
It is so frustrating to see somebody that just makes it look so natural.
So we actually have a very good friend who is exactly like that. We will give a shout out here to our buddy Crash Course. I have been a friend of his since 9th grade. Okay. I did the math on that. That's over 10 years.
We're getting old.
Tell me about it. No, hold on. 15. Yeah, it's closer to 15 years.
Even worse.
15 years.
No, but that's good. That's good. But keep going.
And so every game that ever comes out, every game I play with Crash, every game he introduces, every time we get with another group of friends, he just naturally knows what to do. And his brothers are actually very similar. Isn't it, though?
The newest game that just came out, Borderlands 3. So excited to get it. But I jumped on to Discord because that's our chat program. So he's like, hey, Alvatross, have you seen this game yet? I was like, no, is it fun? He goes, look at this. It's only been out for 2 days.
Yeah.
He's already so far into the game because he's just so naturally good at games because that's what he does. He plays video games. That's his hobby. He found something he was good at and just went with it. But he was just watching him play. It was natural. Now, obviously, he did play the first one and second one.
Yes.
But the third one was so different, at the same time the same. But to see him just naturally in it, and it's only been 48 hours.
Yeah.
And he does have a job and a wife, so he's not just playing that. To give you a background, he's not just sitting at home playing video games.
No, exactly. He has other things that he does too. But like we were saying, he's just naturally good at it. And that's what the dreamer in all of us wants. We are on our second podcast. Now, consistency here is we are recording on Friday night, just like last week. And if we want this to succeed every Friday night, we need to be in either my basement or where you're going to have your microphone set up, recording an episode, and then I will do the editing on Wednesday when I have the time because my other days are completely full.
Consistency.
Yeah, exactly. And so what we have to understand and discuss now is that the dream is merely a starting point. There is a misconception that if you can dream it and believe it, that you can do it.
So, okay. That brings up a good point. Okay, so I used to work at a company called Vivint Solar, and something the CEO told me once just blew my mind. He looked at us in a meeting and said, "Where do you see yourself in 5 years?" And so he's like, "I don't know, celebrating the 5th year anniversary of you asking me this question."
You're such a smart aleck.
That's actually not my joke. That comes from Mitch Hedberg. It's
anyway,
funny. Can't take credit, but it's funny. But he says, where you want to be in 5 years, you have to think that far ahead. So you got to be thinking 2 or 3 years ahead of where you're currently at. If you want to be a professional gamer, you got to think ahead. Okay, well, if I want to be there, I've got to make sure I'm getting there. So that's my goal. I got to be living 2 years in the future. I got to be living there now, not necessarily as in, well, I got to go out and buy all the equipment now. You know, you got to work up to stuff, but keeping your mindset as in, you know, I'm so focused on the goal there versus where I'm at now, because where you want to go, that's what you got to be looking at.
Exactly.
And does that make sense?
Yes, it does. It really does, and that leads into it. So now we ask ourselves, what does consistency have to do with that? It's about practice. Ask any athlete, any regular sports athlete, how long they practiced.
Oh my gosh. So to give you a really good example, I think there's a really, really good guitarist. His name
Eric Clapton.
Yes. He would play a song 21 times in a row. And if he messed up once, he'd start over. So if he could not play it 21 times in a row perfectly, then he was not good enough. He said it wasn't perfect. He
couldn't record it.
Yeah, he had to play it 21 times. He's like, hey, I did not mess up 21 times in a row. I'm good. I mean, and that's how gaming is. And,
exactly.
And with gaming, it's a different world than music, but no two games are going to be the same because of whatever. So let's talk about League of Legends, because that's what you do.
That is what I do.
You are a manager over League of Legends team. So how does consistency come into play there?
So the first thing is you need to know where you're going to go. There are 5 different positions on a meta most effective tactic available team. Okay. The positions are top, jungle, mid, bot, and support. And though bot meaning bottom, I want to clarify that for those who aren't familiar.
And for those who aren't familiar, can you just give like a brief description of each?
I can. So
just so they know what we're talking about.
League of Legends is a square map with a base in the bottom left and top right corners. Now, from those bases up along the very top corner, straight down the middle and down to the bottom corner are what are called lanes. Mm-hmm. In those lanes are turrets, and they spawn minions. So your goal, you and your 4 teammates' goals, are to go in those lanes or in between those lanes in what's called the jungle to find those minions and kill those minions to get gold. Then you buy items, which makes your champion that you're controlling stronger so that you can then destroy the turret and destroy the enemy base. Now, the problem is you have 5 enemy team members who are doing the exact same thing. So you're fighting in the lane, trying to get those minions, trying to kill each other, trying to force onto those turrets. And there is actually a really great video on Riot Games YouTube channel where Freak, that's his name, not
we're using gamer names in this, so some of them are pretty out there.
And he explains exactly what it is. But essentially, the idea is on the top side, you're doing what's called farming. You want to watch the rest of the map, make sure you get as much gold as possible in your items and stay alive. In the middle lane, you want to be able to push those minions underneath the turret and force your opponent to stay there while you go somewhere else and try and impact the game. Try and get a 2 versus 1 up in the top, or a 3 versus 2 in the bottom, or go with your jungler who is always doing that, always consistently moving around the map and trying to find a place.
So with what you're talking about, you have a team, and so 5 players are always playing at once.
Yes.
It's a 5-on-5. So with each player playing a different position, are they always consistently with that position?
And that's what I was going to say, is you need to pick a lane. You need to decide where do you want to play, and you need to play that place every game that you can, every time. Otherwise, it spreads out what champions you play, what style you play, because if you're in the middle, again, you're trying to shove and move around the map. In top lane, you don't do that. Okay. You don't really move around the map. On the bottom side, the bot laner, you're the main source of damage, but you're also really easy to kill. And so you need to pay a lot of attention and you need to stay safe down in that lane. And you have your support down there who's going to be healing you, giving you shields, providing vision by placing little things called wards that let you see places around the map. And so all 5 positions play completely differently. And if you're splitting your time, learning how to support someone, but then when you're in the middle and you have to fend for yourself, it just doesn't work that way.
Just the consistency isn't there with the
exactly.
practice.
You need to pick a spot and you need to stick with it. And a style, you need to adapt to what's called the meta. And again, for those that don't know, it's an acronym that means most effective tactic available.
That's interesting. I've never heard that before.
Yeah, it actually guides a lot of what the professional players do, not just in League of Legends.
You're talking like the League of Legends Championship.
Yeah. The LCS, the LCK over in Korea, LPL in China, the entire world at the same time has the same game. And what's the most effective changes every patch and changes based on what people just randomly try. Some stuff that doesn't seem like it should work, works, and then suddenly the meta is thrown on its head and it ruins the game. It makes it really, really hard to play. Like a couple of years ago, there was an item called Ardent Sensor. And what it did is anytime you healed or shielded, it increased whoever got that buff, their attack speed by some ludicrous percentage. And so all anyone played were these supports who could get gold really early, could push the lane and get the gold, and buy that item within 11 minutes, and then just buff up that bottom lane carry we were talking about that has that main source of damage. And it got so ludicrous because it was the only thing people would do.
Awesome.
Kind of.
So that's like a description of the game that we're talking about there. So going back to the original question, I hope I actually remember it.
How does consistency apply?
Yes, to your team, because you're the manager of a team.
Yes, and so I have someone specifically assigned to the top lane, someone specifically assigned in the jungle, in the middle, and 2 people on the bottom lane. And so as an aspiring esports athlete, you need to pick a lane. And you need to work on that lane and getting good at that lane. And each one of those lanes comes with a group of champions that perform better in that capacity.
Now, technically, you can pick any champion
and
play anyone, but obviously, you're going to say, with being consistent, okay, this champion right here is good for specifically these needs, and I'm going to work on these select few.
Exactly. So, best example is support. The support role is all about making sure that your team can do what they need to do while staying alive. You provide vision, you provide healing, shields, you start the plays, you support your team. And so if you get used to that style and that champion, that means that those spells that they cast have healing and have what's called crowd control, stuff like stuns, knockups, knockbacks, those type of things. And they really help set up plays so that the champions that have a lot of damage can deal that damage, get the kills, and get the gold, and then help win the game. So you wouldn't want to take a champion like that typically up in the top side where you have what's called a bruiser, someone who's really hard to kill and deals a lot of damage.
So kind of a tanky character.
Exactly, because sometimes you can't heal yourself. Sometimes you can't shield yourself. If all you have is a means to protect, you're not going to be able to fight someone. That's why you take that champion in the bottom. And then if you have an assassin of sorts, you don't want to go against someone who can just kill all the minions super quick, because then you have to sit there and fight these minions while they get a chance to roam. And so that's the other thing is you need to stick with that style and find your lane and find where you need to be and practice that style.
That's awesome. And I love that information. So the next question that brings up then is going off of, so we've talked about how you've got the different positions and how you've got certain team members that play those certain characters that are good in those strict positions.
Exactly.
Now, how do you manage the time so that you are consistently, and yes, I'm continuing to use the word. It's bugging me that I'm continuing to use this word, but you're consistently with, like, let's say practices, or how does that work out? Because you've got, from what I know, your team members are not all in the same area that you live in.
No, exactly. So when you go and you play, and this applies again to any game, when you go into game, if there is a position selection, you type it as fast as you can. I'm going jungle.
So you're saying your team members say they'll let you know what they're going to play that day.
Essentially. But we're talking in the World Wide Web, just out in the random, because they have single player, but it matches you with 4 other people just who are happening to play at the same time.
Yeah. So you're talking like,
Yeah. And in League of Legends specifically, you can actually pick a lane, a primary and a secondary, and it will try and give you one of those 2. And so you don't necessarily need to communicate that much where you're going, because the game will assign you to that place. And that's a recent development, I think, within the last 2-3 seasons. And so I remember when I first started back in season 2, it was the moment you got in and chat was available. I had 3 letters, top, and I just spammed it, top, enter.
Because that was the lane
that's where I wanted to go.
Exactly. Getting good at that lane because you played characters that did great in that area.
Yes, exactly. And so that's what you need to do. Now, as someone who has done a lot of grinding and a lot of playing in these games, I have to warn you guys that there is a word we're going to give you that is completely different from what you're usually told. Because when you hear about practicing, you need patience, right?
Patience. I can get that. And that makes sense. As soon as you said that, I was like, where is he going with this? And you said patience. And I'm like, oh, yeah, because you're not going to get good overnight.
No. And that's the thing, is that you need to be consistent with it. You need to dedicate the time. You need to dedicate the mentality. That's key. You have to be in the right mindset. If you play with the term called tilted, where you're not quite yourself, you're not in the right mindset, you're not really ready, then you won't do well.
That makes a big difference, being in a mindset like that. There's been many times that I've jumped in a game and I'm like, you know what? I did so good yesterday, but I'm not focused today. I'm not doing as good, unless you're Crash Course.
But so I want to remove the word patience, even though it's the word that everyone has always heard, always said, including in regular sports. But I want to give you this. I want you to have tenacity.
Okay. Define tenacity.
Tenacity is the ability to... I hope that no one can hear my furnace turning on right now.
That noise right now is just his furnace. If you can hear that, there's no demon in this room.
Tenacity is the ability to take the hit and keep going without slowing down.
That's true. That's a big thing. A lot of people... I've seen a lot of gamers that as soon as they get hit, they back off. They back off, and it's not necessarily they're like okay, I gotta back up to let some heat come off, which would be smart. But it's like they're giving up. They're like, that was too much for me. It's overwhelming. Well, no, then stuff's gonna happen. But realize just because something happened doesn't mean you're failing. It doesn't mean that you're not good enough. It means take a step back for a second, even if it's just mentally, and figure out another way.
Exactly. And a great example, I'm going to mention one of my players today. He was in a promotion to go from Platinum 3 to Platinum 2. And a very brief overview. Basically, when you rank up in League of Legends, you have different medals that give you a rank. And inside those ranks are divisions 4 through 1. 4 being the lowest, 1 being the highest. And he was ready to move on, but lost the games that would have improved him. He's been in this promotion several times. And he hasn't given up yet. And do you know why?
Because he has patience and tenacity?
Because he's tenacious. He has tenacity. And he knows and understands that the consistency and getting over that loss and not letting it affect him. And congratulations to him, by the way. I don't want to call his name right now.
Up. Yeah. Don't give up.
Yeah, you can't give up. Otherwise, you're not being consistent.
No, and giving up is just you need to understand, once you accept nobody's perfect.
Yes.
You're not always going to be number 1 or number 2. Sometimes you're going to have good days. Sometimes you're going to have bad days, because no game is the same. No matter what game you're playing, your mindset, the mood you're in, how you're feeling, it makes a big difference.
It does. And you actually reminded me, I told you a story. One of the most famous League of Legends players who has retired, his name is Dyrus. He is actually the main reason I have a favorite LCS team. LCS is the League Championship Series. He's the main reason I chose top as where I wanted to play. He is a huge inspiration to me. But he retired at the end of Season 5 when his team wasn't able to make it out of the groups. And since then, I am not kidding you. Check this out. He has quit playing League of Legends every single season, but then picks it up right before the season ends and boosts himself, plays himself, and wins so much that he puts himself in the top tier of players.
And it's all that practice and consistency.
Exactly. And he has consistently, year after year after season, just played the games and got himself there. And do you know why? Because he's consistent.
Agreed.
And he never gave it up. Those skills that he drilled into his own brain, his own consciousness.
But you know what? Let's take a step back there and even think even deeper. Okay, so he was a top laner, is what you said. Yes. I don't know if he's put this out there, but think about the people that are really good. The gamers that do so well. Where were they at? They had to start somewhere.
Exact.
Now, they probably just jumped in. What was his name? Dyrus. He probably jumped in and was like, you know what? I'm going to start in the middle. Or I'm going to start with this character. He probably didn't find it for a while where he was good at. So what we're telling you is don't give up. If you don't do good in one area, you know what? There are so many combinations that you could do. Have fun with it. Figure it out.
Yes.
Let's be... What's the word I'm looking for? I
want to say tenacious.
We'll go with tenacious
and consistent.
Just find where you're at. Don't just because you can't do it the first time doesn't mean you're bad.
Or maybe you just ran into the Dyrus of your level at that particular moment, and you have to move on.
Or one of those trolls.
Or one of the trolls. You cannot forget the trolls.
Oh.
And you just have to get over it, and you have to keep practicing because you have a goal, and no one can stop you from achieving that other than yourself.
That's funny because speaking about trolls, my buddy, we call him Big Steve. That's his gamer.
Yes.
And I haven't given up. I want to because it's just one of those things. I'm done. But no, you just want to rage quit. But anytime he sees me playing Overwatch, he focuses on me, and it makes me want to give up, but I don't. Why? Because I'm like, you know what? I take it as a challenge. You know what? I'm going to figure out his tactics, and I'm going to figure out his moves. And actually, there was a few times that he tried coming after me. I got him because I knew what he was going to do because I studied him. I studied the characters I was going to use. I knew his moves and his tactics, and that's another thing you can use with patience, tenacity, and consistency. Is consistency not just jumping and thinking and going for it, but taking your time to understand it more, looking around the peripherals. The peripherals.
There you go.
The peripherals of the game.
Exactly.
Like, for example, League of Legends, you've got multiple obstacles in there that can benefit you, not just, I'm doing this on my own. Yes, you got your characters, but just think they can build you up as you can build them up, and the map is there too.
Yeah.
In any game, there's always that.
I want to say also, another consistent thing you need to do is evaluate yourself. Now,
that was the word I was looking for, I think. Evaluate.
Criticize is not the same thing.
No.
You know, you don't want to go in and say, oh man, I do suck at this game, and like point out all your own mistakes, but rather, instead of looking at it through that way, evaluate yourself. Say, okay, you know what? I did this right, but then if I had done such and such different, then maybe that could have happened. I'll try that next time.
That is a good point of view.
Yeah, instead of saying, man, I am really bad at this. Maybe I shouldn't try that, or maybe I shouldn't play this character anymore, or maybe I should switch lanes, or man, I'm just not good at this game.
Different route.
Exactly. And you need to be consistent in evaluating, not criticizing and grinding yourself into the dust and being so critical, but rather to look at it and improve from everything, because every single mistake is a lesson.
Yeah. I mean, and like I said, look at your end goal. What do you want? You know, you got to find a different way to do it. It's like when you learn to walk, it's something everybody does. And I mean, you're going to fall down 1,000, 2,000, 3,000 times, but Why? Because every time you got up, you tried something different.
Exactly.
Whether your hands were up in your head. That's what my son does. He couldn't walk without having his hands above his head. It was hilarious.
Yeah.
But apparently my brother, he couldn't do it unless his hands were behind him.
Oh, did he Naruto run?
Before it even became an anime, yes. That's what he would do. That's how he figured it out. But think about it like that. Where did you get to where you're at right now? Because if you failed at something, whether you don't realize you failed at it, you had to try a different way to get there. So gaming is the same way. No, it's not this exact same, but it's the same concept. You want to get somewhere, you got to figure it out. Whether, okay, I went right this time and that was wrong, so I'm going to go left. It's as simple as that.
There we go. And so to wrap up our discussion here, the number one thing for aspiring esports participants, whether that, again, be as an athlete, as a coach, as an analyst, as someone just wanting to stream that game at a high level, you have to be consistent.
And have fun with it.
And I agree. You need to have fun. Remember, it's a game.
Video games were meant to be fun.
I agree. And so with that, do you have anything else you want to add to this discussion? Any other little pointers?
As of right now, no. I think we covered a lot with just being consistent with where you're going.
I agree.
So if we're gonna take away anything from this, I would say be consistent, be tenacious, and don't give up.
Agreed. And so we're gonna go ahead and call it here, and we'll move on to our outro. Thank you all so much for listening. This has been a real pleasure. Juhadre, and we will be back next week with another discussion.
So please follow us on social media, Rated R Esports, at Rated LOL, RatedResports.com, and Rated R Esports on YouTube.
Don't forget to check us out personally either with @Juhadre
and @Alvatross17.
So that has been our outro for Juhadre. We will catch you next time.